Here's a place where all of us can be safe. Our stories of transformation can be safe, and all the things we want to research are safe here. This is Safe Space with Cheyenne. I'm really excited you're here, and I hope you stick around for a while, because I've got a lot to show you before I leave Earth. I love you guys. Hello, all of my friends. Welcome back into our safe space. It has been a minute, but I am back, and I have brought a lovely guest with me today. She does so much, so I just figured it'd be better for me to read her bio to you because I am completely captivated by this. So Sylvie is a certified clinical EFT practitioner and narcissist trauma-informed coach who guides high-performing men and women out of survival mode and into self-expression. Her clients are successful on the outside, but inside they're exhausted from performing strength, silencing truth, and carrying the emotional weight of everyone around them. With a background shaped by deep personal trauma and transformation, Sylvie doesn't just talk about healing, she embodies it. Her work blends nervous system repair with emotional recalibration to help clients release the inner blocks that logic alone can't touch. Her signature approach helps high achievers reclaim the voice they buried to stay safe, so they can finally lead, love, and live with unapologetic authenticity. This isn't about fixing you, it's about freeing you, because real success is built from the inside out. What a bio, and welcome to the show, Sylvie. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Like we said before we started recording, this is definitely like a year in the making. So having you come on here is just beautiful, divine timing and all. Before we really get into the EFT work that you're doing now, I would really love to hear what drove you into this type of work. So wherever you would like to start your story for myself and the guests, please take over.
Yeah, well, it's also kind of been a story in the making. I guess the easiest place to start is in 2012, I was diagnosed with stage 4 leukemia and lymphoma. And it was a type that they didn't normally see in young women. It was a type that they normally saw in like 70-plus-year-old men. So they didn't really treat it, and they didn't have an option. And they were going to just do a stem cell transplant to see if that worked. And I was just about to get married. It was about 5 weeks before my wedding. And that didn't sound like the option that we wanted to take. It seemed really radical, and there wasn't a whole lot of confidence in it at the time. And so it put me out on this kind of natural healing journey to try to figure out how to survive, basically. And so I just dove headfirst into this whole world of what that means. And so I did everything I could get my hands on. And I got really good at controlling my outside environment. I had a successful real estate business. I was working full time the whole time. And then at home, my next full-time job was just kind of watching what I ate, juicing, doing hyperbaric chambers and saunas and IVs. And, there's so many things that we did. And so it kept me stable. I was able to, I actually had my miracle daughter in 2015. And so it was stable, but I never quite got over that hump. And I got to a point where I really realized that my life was so I boxed myself in with all these like checklist things that I was doing every day to make sure I was doing the right things, in both like business and in health. And so I realized that it was just taking all my energy just to survive. And so I really had like cut out the life part of my life, and I was just living for the treatments. And I couldn't figure out how to get over that hump because I literally had controlled everything in my environment that I could control. And so I realized that there had to have been like this, like an emotional component, but I had no idea how to get to that. And so I started on these different kind of self-healing journeys with that in mind. And then when COVID happened, I ended up getting pneumonia. I didn't realize it was pneumonia. I thought it was my gallbladder. And I was pretty stubborn at that point because I was just kind of on my own. I had left the medical community. And so I was just trying to manage it with like gallbladder flushes, and it was crazy. And it got to the point where I couldn't get out of my recliner for a month. And I was sleeping in it because I couldn't lay down because my back would go into spasm. And it was, the pain was probably like a 15 out of 10. I couldn't pick my children up. We adopted a son in 2020. I couldn't pick my children up because I was in so much pain. And I finally went to a myofascia practitioner. And I said, can you just move the pain from here a little bit? It's so bad. I just need a break from it from here. Like, can you move it? And she took one look at me and she's like, I can't touch you. Like, you have to go to the ER. And I was shocked because I was just so in this pattern of not asking for help, not knowing how to receive help, just doing it on my own, being hyper independent. I mean, all of this situation was like custom made for me, right? I was like, challenge accepted. I got this. And so my husband took me to the ER on her recommendation, and it was a miracle because I was literally 24 hours from organ failure. And I almost died in my recliner because I was too stubborn to ask for help. And we literally got there and they took my oxygen levels. They threw me in a wheelchair, got me on oxygen, took me to my own private room. And I told my husband, I said, tell them not to take my gallbladder, because I was so obsessed with like not losing my gallbladder. And the doctor's like, it's not your gallbladder, it's your lungs. And my husband and I look at each other like, what? Like, it never occurred to me that I could be wrong. And at that point, I was talking to people that weren't there in the room. And I was out of my body and having this conversation with something. I felt very peaceful. I was not in any pain. And I was given a choice to come back or not. And I wasn't sure if I was going to come back because I felt relief for the first time in a long time. And but I talked to them about it. And the deal was, if I were going to come back, I had to be different. I had no idea what that meant. Apparently I chose to come back because I ended up waking up in my hospital room. They had given me this life-saving lung surgery. And it was a long road recovery from there. I was back in my recliner when I got home from the hospital a few weeks later. I was on oxygen. I had lost so much weight. I was literally skin and bones. I had like the tubes, that would go through the house, and a walker because I couldn't walk on my own. And I was back in that same recliner thinking, how did I get to this point? I have these two little kids. Like, how did I get here and not, like, how did I almost die without asking for help and not seeing even that I needed help? And so then just kind of the way life does it, right? EFT fell in my lap shortly after that. And I, as soon as I did a couple sessions, I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I've been looking for. This is that connection piece for me that I really needed. This was the tool that I had been desperately trying to find. And so I was hooked. So I was just going into all these appointments just with this new sense of purpose. And then I got called back to the hospital, and they had told me that they had sampled my lung tissue and sent it to the lab because it looked so weird. And that wasn't protocol, but it just looked really weird. So the results came back that the cancer was now in my lung tissue. And they're like, you have to get treatment. There's no other option. And so here I am, like, recovering, feeling like I'm on this new, like, lease on life. I had chosen to come back here. I'm going to figure that out. And I was getting thrown back into kind of the old story and was really destabilized for a while as we tried to figure out really quickly how to do that. My lymph nodes in my abdomen were really big. There was one that was 17 centimeters long and one I think was 22 centimeters long. And anything over 10 centimeters with the treatment that had come out while I'd been on my hiatus from the medical system could put you at high risk for tumor lysis, which means that the tumors are breaking down so fast that it can shut down major organs. So I was supposed to be hospitalized and under supervision during my whole treatment, not my whole treatment, but during specific times of my treatment. So we needed a specialist. And so I found a specialist in Utah. I'm in Arizona. And she said, I can treat you. You absolutely do need treatment, but you have to live here for a few months. And I don't take your insurance. And so we were like, okay, what now? And she said, actually, I have a clinical trial coming up soon that I think you would be perfect for. You have to qualify for it and you have to hold on for a month. And so I did, and I got in. And so I went to Utah and lived in Utah for a while. And I told my husband, because I wasn't going to be working during that time, I said, I'm going to get certified in EFT. And he's like, can you just heal? I was like, no, I think this is part of it. I don't know why, but I think this is what I agreed to. And so I did. So I had all this time and went through the whole thing. And it was so magical to have that experience during this specific time of treatment and healing my body, because I realized like I had this, this very human tendency of like, this is the one way I can see my body getting better, right? We limit it to this linear thinking of like, this is the one way this can happen. And diving into this work, I really was starting to feel and understand and get this whole perspective of there's actually a million ways that you can heal inside and out. It's just, which way would you like to choose? And I was choosing a very hard way to do that, but it was what my body needed to do to get my attention at the time, because I wasn't in my body. I wasn't connected to my body. I wasn't connected to my intuition. I was cut off just from a lot of trauma that had happened in my life. And so it all makes sense looking back on it. But I got to the point where during my treatments, I realized that I didn't care anymore if I had cancer or not. It didn't become about, that I would accept myself if I got better. Like it just was if that's part of who I am, I just accept it all and it's all okay. And it was at that moment that I like dropped the rope with the whole illness. And it was in that moment that I realized that I was probably in remission because I didn't have that attachment to it anymore. And that's what EFT really helped me with. And then I got into remission, and then they announced it a few months later. But at that point, it just wasn't a surprise because I just wasn't in that same headspace I had been for over a decade. And so then I finished my certification. I got connected with my mentor at the Heart Chime Revolution, Nico and Jean, and started working with her because she focuses on narcissistic trauma, which was a specific trauma that I had to work through with all of this. And then she offered me to teach me to be a coach of hers. And so I coach and train for her and use it in my own business with my clients. And I just use a combination of different things I picked up along this journey. I thought I was saving my life, but I really look back and see that I've been in training this whole time and that this is really what I was meant to do. And so I ended up just leaving real estate, even though people thought I was insane, because this was really what I was meant to do. And I love it. And it's the most amazing. I get to walk with people who get to come back home to themselves. And just watching that is the most humbling, amazing experience I could ever imagine. So I'm so grateful. My life looks 180 degrees than it did 12 years ago or 13 years ago.
I was just about to say, like, what is the total time span for all of this? But 12, 13 years, I mean, living every day, it probably felt like hell forever.
Yes.
And the mental state that you had to have been in, going from one diagnosis to one problem to another, especially I'm in the same boat as you, where I have to audit if I'm boxing myself in with watching what I eat, even the quality of water, the products that I use, the food. Yeah. All of that. I don't want to get super neurotic about it, but I also just feel like there's such it shouldn't be that hard to go to a grocery store and see like how clean your water is, but it kind of is in the day and age that we're in.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine with having all of those ailments inside of you and how just like terrified you are. And EFT, you know, we go through the emotional code of a lot of things, but also the energetics behind it. So when you finally found EFT and all of the training that you did you realize how much fear played a role in a lot of the diagnosis and the treatments, and even with the like conversations with anybody in Western medicine, because they are absolutely linear in their healing?
Yeah. Yeah. Fear is a huge one. For me, it was control, right? The ego wanted to control and wanted to be right. And it's tough. Like I ultimately blended Western and alternative medicine and energy therapies. So I think they both have a role. But I really also just truly, truly believe in the power of the mind and how smart and resilient our bodies really are. And I've had to work through, I mean, I still eat organic and all of that, but I've had to work through like the fears of if I don't, right? Like, because you can't control it all the time, even, right? So I control it when I can, and I've just learned to let go of when I can't, because I read something somewhere which makes a lot of sense, that if you drink like a green juice, but you're fearful and anxious, then it's not going to even like have that same effect that it could if you drink it, in peace and calm and joy. And so in that sense this person was saying that even if you ate something that wasn't necessarily good for you, but you did it in total harmony and peace and joy, that it actually is more nourishing for you and your soul than eating what the right thing is under the kind of that grip of fear.
That's how I feel about my relationship with French fries, honestly.
Right?
You like, it depends on where you go. You don't know like what grease it's going to be in, but still like, oh, it's my one like comfort food that I'll just like go to, and I'll be having like the happiest day ever, and I have a little bit of time before I have to go get my daughter, and I'm like, I'm gonna go get an order of French fries. And I'm really into like speaking into my water and blessing my food or praying over it, whatever you need to do to really get the good vibes and get the fear out of it. Because you bring up a wonderful point that I think is an easy trap for people to get into when they're trying to eat healthy, is they almost split it into a dualistic concept where it's like, this is good food, this is bad food.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's like a slippery slope into an eating disorder from what I've seen in the vegan community for sure. But you bring up a really good point that you can have a really good time eating food that's technically not good for your body. I would say in moderation is what I found for myself.
Yeah.
But also what I noticed when I was trying to transition, like consciously, I know that this is the way that I should go, not just now for my health, but my future self and my longevity in life. And, you know, my cells just wanting to be the most positive cells they can be. But what I noticed was, besides like the addiction that I felt like I had to certain foods, it was also the comfort level I had to them. And even like the serotonin and dopamine hit I would get off certain meals. And yes, I know I'm doing the juices and I'm eating all of the right foods, but there was something where like I had to tell my mind, like, you're not being punished, you're taking care of yourself. So I had to like rewire those parts of my brain to, as excited as I am to go get French fries, I'm just as excited to figure out what I'm going to put in my smoothie today, or how am I going to fit sea moss somewhere in my diet with all of the other things. And I've worked at it. I'm probably on about 6 years of flipping everything over in our house, doing the research. You know, this year I finally have a garden where I can forage all of my own stuff. So I have more control over like where the seeds come from, the soil, all of that. But when you're starting, especially in like a health crisis, it's extremely overwhelming, and it's so easy to go back into that fear-based aspect of it.
Yeah.
I have done minimal training on EFT. I have not done the vast amounts that you have. And I've seen your client testimonials online, and I believe every single one of them. I love that consistently people are talking about how you really are a safe space to really just go, okay, here's what I see, here's what's going on. And I think you have a really good way of like showing people their blind spots, but also being really nice about it is what I'm getting from them as well.
Mm-hmm.
You also don't let people get away with stuff, because then like,
Right.
you know, what would that be? So I found the power of EFT, I would say like 2.5 years ago. And I've worked through it. Like, I don't have clients. I have friends and family that call me. And when I came into EFT, I explained the science behind it, how it was like invented and evolved through a couple other people. And just, I'm kind of the same way. Like, I would really like to figure myself out before I have to go to Western medicine or even alternative practitioners. I'm not against it, but I just want to digest and be able to understand the information myself. So EFT, it was like a strike on my independence, where I was like, there's more emotional things going on inside of me. I can do the breath work, I can do meditation, I can journal, but there's things like stuck in my subconscious that are trying to talk over my conscious voice. And I would say in the last 3 years, I've been heavily working on that, like behind the scenes, before I was even able to, you know, present it on this platform or any other platform that I talk to people about. Yeah. So when you found EFT and you finally found like the connection in your emotional code, did it just make sense or make you retrospect that you had been negating like past traumas, things that you were avoiding, whether in your relationship or past relationships? Like, what did that epiphany look like for you?
Oh my gosh, such a good question. It really just, yeah, I mean, I was one of those people that would have said that my life was fine, everything was fine, right? Like I just, when we grow up in different family systems, you know, we counterbalance what's going on, right? And so, and we take on a role from in childhood typically, and so my role was caretaker and, you know, keeping the peace and making sure everything was fine. So a lot of that involved not speaking my needs, to the point of not even knowing that I had needs. And that's why it's so wild how this all kind of came to fruition through my recliner, right? Of just not even realizing that I needed help in that moment, even though like literally all systems were like on 5-alarm status. And so what this did was the EFT really helped me move my conscious mind out of the way, because our conscious mind really is like convincing. It is, we think it's so like everything that it's telling us is true, and it's trying to keep us safe, right? The amygdala of the brain doesn't care if we're happy. It doesn't care if we're expanding. It doesn't care if we're evolving. It just wants us to stay safe in the specific way that it has figured out how to keep us safe from childhood, right? And as interpreted through children's black and white thinking, because they don't have the model of the world. And so as a child, I just stepped into that role of like, yep, I'm not going to have needs, so everything is fine here. What can I do to help you? And it was really toxic for my system. But allowing my conscious mind to very gently be kind of go off to the side, because EFT, there's a lot of repetition and using the words of the client exactly, because we all use language just slightly different, even if we speak the same language. And it's like giving a monkey mind a banana, like here's a banana, focus on the banana, focus on the banana. So the conscious mind is like, okay. And it can get over here for a second, and it allows that subconscious mind to come up. So EFT is not going to bring up anything that isn't there. It's not going to create anything, but it does bring up stuff that you might not even consciously have memory of. Like I still don't have a ton of memories from childhood. They're starting to come through, and they come through very gently. And what I love is that EFT supports you exactly where you're at. So it's not something where you have to slay this huge, scary dragon of what we're all afraid to, like, we don't want to look under the hood because we kind of have an idea what's under there, but we don't really know if we're ready to deal with it or have time to deal with it. And this allows us to go kind of dance with it, is how I talk about it, because it's energy is how I look at it. So we're just dancing with the energy, trying to loosen it up a little bit, and we can go layer by layer. So we can start like 100 feet out, you know, and just gently come in. And so that, but it still starts shifting things. And so we can shift patterns, limiting beliefs, the emotional weight of energy that just gets stuck. You know, I look at it as like a log that kind of gets stuck in a river and just is circling and circling and circling. But if you take that log out, the flow is back. So that's kind of how I look at it all. But it really helped me realize the truth, my truth. It got me, you know, there was so much that I thought was my truth that was told to me, interpreted by me, right? That wasn't actually me. And I would have sworn it was, and it wasn't serving me. And so no wonder I was stuck and confused and frustrated and exhausted and trying to prove my worth by being super successful and all of those things, trying to do more to prove that I was worthy, right? Because I didn't know my real truth. And so what this work does is it just helps you come back to who you are, outside of the noise, outside of the programming, outside of the limiting beliefs, outside the experiences, because we all have that truth inside of us of who we really are. And I think there's also this fear that can happen where we're really afraid of like how powerful, what if we really are that powerful, right? There's an amazing quote about that. Like, what if our biggest fear is that we are more powerful beyond measure? But it's so true. It's so true. And so we work on just layers of however it shows up. And sometimes it's with just one image, and we just work with that image. And it could be something like, I have a client who had this huge shift because she saw it as this cloud in the middle of the road. And so we worked with the cloud. And at the end, she had this huge epiphany that like helped her unstick from a situation that she was in. And that's how her brain wanted to show it. So it's not always these like crazy things that we fear. Our mind and our subconscious can actually be very gentle with how it kind of helps us process things. And so we just go layer by layer, and we use inner child work. So we go and we find the frozen pieces from the past that still hold the fear. And we just let that child speak and validate everything that it wants to say. And my client is actually reparenting themselves. And so I'm just a guide using tapping as a tool and helping them form that relationship so that they can have that relationship, you know, after we're done, that they can continue to form and work from.
So you're also, not only are you going into, I mean, a lot of things that even therapists kind of dabble in, but they don't give. I have not done therapy, so I could be speaking ignorantly about this, but any of my friends that have gone to therapy, I never saw them taking a tool like this and continuing the relationship with what they found outside of the office. If there are therapists out there, thank you so much for doing that.
Yes.
All I've seen, again, from my limited perspective on therapy, is I'm going to go to this office where we're going to book an hour, and you know, I'll be back in 2 days. I'll be back next week. And it kind of reminds me of like sinners in church on Sundays, and then they go back and doing the same thing on Monday. You know, like I've on and off, I've looked at therapy over the years, and I'm like, oh, maybe I should go have someone to talk to and kind of like pull this story out. And then when I came into EFT, I was like, this connects my body and my mind more than I think just sitting on somebody's couch and going through my childhood for the umpteenth time.
Yeah.
So when you're finding, especially the inner child, I really think that is groundbreaking for anybody that really wants to figure out why they're still acting kind of like a child in moments of their life. You know, when your inner child shows up at a board meeting, it's really not a good idea. But
Right.
like, why did I show up that way? So I'm picturing being a client of yours as you're walking through me and telling me this story, especially for anybody that hasn't heard EFT before. Because, I mean, you can look it up. There's videos on YouTube that I've looked up. And I don't want people to get the idea that you're just sitting here tapping on parts of my body and repeating like affirmations. Because like affirmations are going to be so far down the road after they're way down the road. EFT, what I want to try to explain to the guest is you have a safe space to sit in with a practitioner. We're going to go through maybe what you believe you're stuck you might be stuck in, or you even have people come in your office and say, I just have no idea. I'm just kind of like losing my mind right now. There could be so many variations of it, but do you put like a personalized plan together for everybody? Because I know basic EFT, and even like starting at the top of your head, moving from the brows and doing like different subconscious work. So I added that to like my inner child stuff, but that's just from learning from so many practitioners online without giving all of your work and all of your systems away. Can you create like a fake client in your head so we can give someone the walkthrough of what it would be like? Like, we can definitely stick on topic with if you're surviving a narcissistic relationship, say you're getting a divorce after so many years, you have just woken up to the fact that you've been married to a narcissist and had no idea.
Yeah.
How does EFT support somebody coming into that healing pattern?
So good. So good. So a big difference between, because I'm not a therapist, right? A big difference between me and a therapist is we don't need the story in my office. You can like, some people just want to talk a little bit about it, but we want to get straight to, how is this affecting you? Like, no matter what the story is, sometimes people get stuck with, especially narcissism, was like, is this person a narcissist, or am I overreacting? And they kind of get in this game, and I'm like, let go of all of that. It doesn't matter. What matters is, how is this person's behavior affecting you? Where do you feel it in your body? Is it shallow breath? Is it, panic? How is it showing up? And then we work with how the body is responding. And so we quickly move from the story to how it's actually showing up here. What emotions, right? Like, usually it's a lot of fear, guilt, self-doubt, different things like that. And then we use that as a baseline to then go a little deeper of, when did we feel this way before? And again, it's not about the story even from childhood. It's about just, how did it affect that child, right? Because sometimes we get affected by, like, in negative ways that really scar us, by people that did not had our best interests at heart, right? Mm-hmm. Like, sometimes it was malicious, sometimes it wasn't, but it's like the intention versus impact, right? Like, if we're playing Frisbee and I throw the Frisbee to you and you miss it and it hits your face and now you're hurting, it doesn't matter that I didn't mean to throw the Frisbee. What matters is that you're hurting. And so that's the version that we sit with, is the version that's hurting. And so sometimes I don't have like a one size fits all with anybody, because it's going to come out in different ways. My intention is always just holding in my mind this person in complete joy and bliss in their life. And however it needs to show up is fine. I try to create spaces where people feel free to just throw paint at a wall, and however it wants to show up is all okay. It doesn't matter if it's messy. It doesn't matter if it doesn't, nothing matters. What matters is that we're just sitting with it and acknowledging it, and we're both witnessing it and just letting it ride through. And then I teach people how to tap on their own with how it's showing up in their body. So I'm always teaching people how to do this on their own, because my intention is that after working with me, you are able to have the full toolbox of how to handle what works for you, right? And I always say, I'm going to throw everything that I use at you over time. Take what works, leave the rest. It's all okay. It only matters if it works for you. But sometimes those first few sessions with people, we don't go into an inner world yet. Sometimes if the emotions are really big, we're just doing some gentle practices to put distance to it, right? Because it feels so heavy and part of us. So we have techniques to put distance to it, so it just seems more approachable. So sometimes it's just calming the nervous system immediately. And so that's how a lot of clients start off typically, just because by the time they come to me, most of my clients are very stoic, very, high achieving, not used to asking for help, like me in the past. And I get that. I totally get that. And so a lot of times people will say, oh my gosh, I can't stop crying. And I don't cry. And I'm like, it's okay. It's okay. That your body knows that, like, it's safe to feel this now. And you're allowed to cry as long, as hard as you want here. None of this is going to be shared. This is a safe space. And so we just work with that part that just wants to cry, right? That just wants to is sick of holding it together all of the time. And so there's not really a one size fits all, but I do tend to use all the techniques with everybody kind of in their own timing. I also, because, my specialty is narcissistic trauma, I do a lot of ancestral work too with people, because oftentimes it didn't start with us. It's a pattern that's happened through generations. And so when appropriate, we'll bring that in too. And then I also use revision work, which is the power of the mind to create the life that you want. So this isn't about like getting from like overwhelmed to feeling better. It's like getting from overwhelmed to feeling better to now like showing up, feeling as if you can really be the writer of your life and how this shows up, and teaching the mind, controlling the mind to not just run at its own pace in whatever way of survival mode that we've kind of programmed in our mind, to being able to control it, to just focusing on this is what I want, this is what I want, letting go of the how that's going to happen, and just trusting that it will show up. And so there's a bunch of different ways that we go about all that, but those are the main sections that we tend to touch with each person.
You have convinced me to like be your client in the last 36 minutes. I'm like, yes, I do feel so independent on my healing journey now, even though I love meeting new people and seeing how they do it. And even with the studies that I have in EFT, I know there's so much more to learn. Like my favorite go-to, even if I'm overly excited, I call it golden retriever mode, which luckily I'm not in right now, or you would never get a word in edgewise, but it's always just like my collarbone. I used to sing when I was younger, nothing like super crazy, but enough to be like, oh, I know I want singing to be in my future. And I've spent so much time healing my voice, and just like, not only as a woman, like this whole part of my body, but just like really trying to nurture my voice and realize like which voice is coming in and why, why, like this calm one's nice. I feel like I meditated before our episode and I'm pretty in alignment with it, but there's other times where I'd have to sit there and I'd be like, okay, calm down. I don't know why you're so anxious right now. Like you're fully prepared for all of this. So I have a constant auditing system that I do for the way that I even show up in the present moment. If luckily, we're on good terms, so I don't have to be the B word or anything. But my worst fear now is I have to be mean to someone because they like crossed the line. And obviously something I'm still working on. I really struggle with still like turning the cheek 100% of the time, which I think all of us do.
Yeah.
But that one, and then the one on my stomach, I can lay down on the floor and I can consistently tap that over and over. I've had a lot of trouble with my ovaries since I was younger. And I actually did like some QHHT and some past life work in the last couple of years. And we found there was like a wound that was still there from a past life that came into the ovarian play. And I like how you say, Western medicine and alternative medicine had their place. And I still feel that for a lot of my journey too. I think there's so many, it's kind of like a Mary Poppins bag of tricks is what I call it, especially when you go through and you study and you try to find all these alternative ways to help yourself while still honoring the westernized version of medicine. Can't really tell you where that was going. Just wanted to tell you, I feel your pain with trying all the alternatives and knowing that they all work, but you get to rotate them. I think I admire people so much that can niche down on one thing and be like, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm good at, and this is what I'm pursuing. I am not that person. I love my little bag of tricks, or I feel like, oh, that's happening. Okay, well, when I was feeling the same way you were, these are the 5 things that I tried. So if you want to try that, there you go. Let me know if you need any assistance and kind of go there. But your work, it really is just like a safe space. Just listening here, like I'm softer from talking to you. Like I just keep kind of hunching down more because I just think, in a way, I do think that EFT is such as present as it is, I still think it's going to advance further and further and further, where, I mean, maybe you don't need to be on the medication that you are, because that's suppressing something that EFT can help.
Right.
Maybe it can identify definitely limiting beliefs, inner child. And I love that your focus is letting the body heal itself, but then also the power of the mind, which I really do think is the future of medicine. And again, even though it's present today, it's still not a part of the masses, which is why this show is also here, so we can get your work out to the world and show people there are alternative ways, and you are a lot more powerful than what you've been told and what you think.
Yeah. I think so much of it for my journey, which I wasn't even on my radar, right, was getting to a place of self-acceptance, like true self-acceptance. And that's really what my goal is with everybody that I work with. Because once you can come from a place of self-acceptance, you're no longer needing to look outside yourself for the answer, right? Like I tried all the things because I was constantly looking for what could fix me, right? But it was never about that. It was about unlearning all the things that I learned that covered up the strength that I had that came from just self-acceptance and love. And it's all in there. It's amazing, right? But it is like, it's maddening when we're looking so desperately for it and we can't, but because no one can give us self-acceptance. Mm-hmm. No one can give us that power. We have to walk through it. And so I just look at myself as like a Sherpa, right? Like I'm not doing anything except holding space and I've done my work and I continue to do my work. So I can hold a big container. Nothing people can say is going to freak me out or set me off center, because I know that no matter how it shows up, it's just how it was meant to show up. It's okay. It's okay. And those little whispers, they said, I think it was in the EFT certification that I read, that most physical sensations, like even including illness, I believe, is 2/3 emotional and 1/3 physical. And so when we have that, like that stuckness in our voice, or that anxiety that can show up when we try to use our voice, right? Or the stomach flutters, like there's a physical component to it, but then there is an emotional component to it. And it's how do you get to that emotional component? I do believe that there's so many different ways. This was just the tool that I found that got to it like so quickly, because we can dialogue with those parts. We can pull the part out of the throat and see what it looks like. It might show up as a cloud in the middle of the road, right? It might show up as just a blob. And that's okay. It doesn't make sense usually initially until we kind of dance with it. And then it ends up always making perfect sense. And it's amazing how the mind will use that imagery and those body sensations to communicate with us.
I definitely believe our body is a barometer. And again, as much as I like Western medicine and I don't want to talk too far against it, like it's just some evil thing. Sorry, my dog believes. But it's when it's a mailman. Sorry, listeners. Jack is a protector of his house. I have luckily been saved by Western medicine. Thank God I had them when I had a baby, right? But there were so many alternative things that EFT has given me, and the juicing and getting into, let's just say, alternative. Sorry, Jack's made me lose my thought really quick. When we go back to, like, I hate to keep revisiting inner child, but maybe it's because it was such a monumental epiphany for me in my work. And then I remember you saying that, these clients, they come in, they're kind of shut down. They're extremely stoic. I'm getting very successful, but still type A personalities. Mm-hmm. I'm almost wondering how somebody like that was able to open their mind to EFT in the first place.
Yeah, I think I'm just trying to kind of go down my roster right now, but I think you just get to a place where it just doesn't work anymore, right? Mm-hmm. Because it doesn't just show up in your business, right? It shows up in your relationships. It shows up in your health. It shows up in your emotions. It shows up in all areas of your life. So it does get to a point where, because a lot of the type of people that I work with, we've stuffed emotions, right? Just like, I'll deal with that later. Or if I just stuff it away and ignore it, it's not, it'll go away. Mm-hmm. And so usually by the time people come to me, it's like that pressure cooker where there's just no more room to stuff it down. Mm-hmm. And they don't know what to do because it feels like if they take the top off, it's going to blow. Right. Like, and so there was a time, before I started this, where I was like trying to find one of those places where you could like throw, I heard like these places where you could like throw plates, right? And I was like, oh my God, that would be amazing. I need that. Right. I just knew I needed that because that was like the closest thing I could think of that would maybe touch like the pressure cooker I was feeling inside. And so I always tell people it's okay. It's okay. Of course you feel like a pressure cooker. Of course you feel like you just can't stuff it down anymore. Like it's full. And so let's just like let a little bit of steam out, just a little bit at a time at these safe intervals, right? Because we're going to go at a pace that's right for your nervous system. And yeah, I would never knock Western medicine either. It 100% saved my life more than one time. And, but being able to kind of blend and choose and get to the mindset, because I was so fearful of Western medicine, also like using EFT to help me get to the mindset of like what I had to go through was good for me. Right. And get out of the fear of the side effects of that too. And just move through of just, I surrender, I accept this is working for me. And this is all for me.
Oh, sorry to cut you off.
No, that was it.
The golden retriever wants to come out. When you talk about this, to me, it's like a space of non-judgment. Yeah. And it brings up a very powerful documentary that Greg Braden makes. It's in his Gospel of Thomas one, where he talks about prayer and the right way to pray. But they were talking about using energy healing on this cancer patient, and they were able to heal her, but it wasn't like some hocus pocus or some magic or even just the specific modality they were using. It's the fact that every practitioner in the room, including the cancer patient, didn't judge the cancer, didn't hate the cancer, and didn't look at it from a fear-based standpoint. They looked at it from non-judgmental. It is what it is. And we're going to love it in a way, but not like love and stay. But the thing that I got from it, they call it the neutrality point, which there's a meditation you can do. It's 6 breaths in, 6 breaths out to get your heart and your brain in coherence. But when they say that you hit this 0.1 hertz frequency and your emotional state has surrendered into this neutral point, that is where the magic happens in healing any aspect that you feel like you're stuck with, whatever disease you feel like is long-term or devastating or terminal. And I'm not going to say like everybody can be cured this way, because everybody has their own different story. But even hearing that is a possibility, and then I listened to your story, and besides the out-of-body experience and the near-death experience that we certainly didn't pull apart long enough, I just hear surrender in it and non-judgment when you talk about really coming to terms with what is actually going on with you, not judging it, overcoming the fear of it. And it does kind of take the cloud away so you can see down the road a little better.
Yeah, totally. It's all about surrender. Like even during my when I was in it, right, with the cancer, I could never resonated personally with the fight cancer, kick cancer's ass. Like it didn't resonate with me because I saw like those cells were still part of me in a way, like they were misaligned, right? Like not how I wanted them to be, but it was still me. And so it felt like it was really confusing for me. And what I realized through my journey too, is that I was so armored up because I didn't want to show anybody what I was really feeling, right? Or that I had needs or anything. I also didn't want to get hurt. And that armor like blocked everything out for me that I wanted to enter into. And so, it's wild because the cancer that I had, I mean, my lymph nodes were all swollen, including like all around my neck. I lost my face, right? Like And it literally was like armor trying to protect me. And, and it really took surrender of, I can't control, I can't keep myself, like you can't protect yourself 100% all the time, because then you're just in this another control game, like of control, and there's no room for love. And so it showed up in my marriage, right? Where I would let him in, but only to the point where I felt comfortable. And I'm still learning to deepen and to soften and to surrender, right? But there's these like little natural kind of like gate posts that are like, nope, this is as far as it's safe right now, right? But those gates were really far out here. I didn't even realize, because I'm a private person, but I'm also very open at the same time. And so a lot of people, I think, that know me would be surprised to hear that I say that how guarded I realized I was. But it really was like another, like the cancer for me became like another layer of armor for me. And it really got to surrendering to, it's okay. Like if this is where this is meant to go, this is okay. I'm not going to fight this anymore. And I am going to just surrender and allow life in, because I wasn't, and that included my spiritual life. I would have told you I was spiritual, but my spirituality in my body was void. I didn't know that. I know that now because I know what it feels like now. But I know that it wasn't because God, the universe, spirit, whatever you want to call it, it wasn't because that abandoned me. It was because I wasn't letting it in, because I didn't feel worthy of that. And so there's so many layers of surrender that can be so beautiful, that really changed my life and continue to change my life. And I'm constantly looking for like, where can I just allow even more flow in my life?
You have such a beautiful story. And I also hear you have a book coming out about this as well.
Yeah. So last year I got published in a collaboration book called She Leads From Within, which is how women in business are leading with intuition, which was a really fun project. And after that experience, it was so amazing. We ended up going international bestseller, which was a wild experience. I know, so crazy.
Congrats.
And to just do it as a group was really neat. And so I had formed a relationship with the publisher, and I approached her after that book came out last year and said, I don't know how often you do these, but I have an idea if you would be open to it. I have met the most amazing healers and transformational coaches and just people helping lift people up throughout my journey this last 12 years. And I would love to put a collaboration together of their voices and how they got to what they're doing. And so that book is getting released on Tuesday. It is called Together We Rise, The Wounded Healer's Enlightened Journey to a Collective Ascension. And it's all different healers and transformational coaches who talk about the fire that they walk through and how it really has helped them reach out to lift more people up. And so it's a book on hope and courage and awakening and inspiration. And so I'm hoping that these stories just help bring hope and courage and love to people right now, because the world needs a lot more of these stories.
Yes, sign me up. Thursday, you have it. You have me sold on you, and you have me sold on the book. That's right up my alley. Is there anything you would like to tell our guests before we head out?
Just keep trusting your intuition and keep opening to your intuition, because I guarantee it is always right. And it's only when we doubt it that we start sidestepping. But there's never really a true sidestep, because it's just a different way to the ultimate goal. And so I'm just cheering so loud for you. I know you're on your way.
Sylvie, that was beautiful. And you can also find Sylvie at taprooteft.com, along with all of our social media down at the bottom. Please come back whenever you would like to come on. If you have more to add to the story, whenever, just come on in this place. You have such an amazing story, such resilience in it. But I can identify with the stubbornness in you as well. So I enjoy all of duality, back here in the safe space. And thank you for coming on, and thank you for listening, friends. We'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you.